All right, this is a 66 Vibrolux reverb. Deserves a longer video than this, but I've been really backed up and I don't have time to do a long video, so I'll just hit the highlights. All original iron, totally recapped. You can see this. I've got the 10K droppers here installed. Everything like you've seen in my other videos on this. All the leads are tucked under. All the bends are very nice and even. A little dab of silicone beneath each cap. Won't have any issues. Stock was all 16 microfarads. This is all 20 microfarads. You won't hear any difference between 20 microfarads and 16 microfarads, but the 16 microfarads available on the market today are all 450 volt rated caps. The 20s are 500 volts, and that does make a difference. So time to button this up. The front panel was really, really dirty. It's all been cleaned. There's an indentation here where this amp had been dropped with a cable plugged in, so this jack was pushed in. I can't fix that given the budget and time allowed, but it is all tight and it's mechanically fine. The two bright switches are intermittent. I'm going to take them apart right after this video, see if I can clean the contacts and burnish them and make them work again. Sometimes it's just a matter of pressure as the old phenolic wafer kind of bends inside there instead of being flat. Had this knob here, this cheap, non-original, ill-suited knob here for this bass knob. So I moved all the original knobs down here, and I looked to see if I had an old knob that could kind of match these in my stash. I don't, so I put on a new reissue knob there on the intensity. Still stands out, but it's a bit better knob than this thing. Let's see. I was just moving stuff randomly as I was testing the sound. Let me get this back to kind of noon starting point. New grounded power cable. The ground left long, connected to the chassis. In 66, they had the ground lugs connected to the transformer mounting bolts. I removed all that, replaced the standard plain nuts with these Kester nuts, and redid all the grounds to chassis like they did in 65 and earlier. And it's going to here. And all this has been rewired so that the neutral goes to the primary here, and the hot goes to the fuse here, and then from the fuse to the power switch to the other primary. Needed new screen grid stoppers. As you can see, I've got these 3 watt 470 ohms in place. The original grid stoppers were 2.2K in this amp for whatever reason, but they are both measuring just fine. Crucially, the wire going to pin 1 here, which goes through this resistor to pin 5, that's your grid stopper. So this is the grid connection, had broken. And while the wire was still soldered right here, it had just broken off, which is something that happens very occasionally with the old solid core wired fenders. It's not very typical, but it did happen, which meant that this tube, the tube that was here, was very unhappy having no grid reference. We'll get to that in a little bit. My usual stuff over here. So the chassis grounds are redone. The heater center tap has been disconnected and taped off. Artificial heater tap created. Everything on the bias board replaced properly. Bias pot cleaned. This 27K has been dropped to 15K to give it a better range. In this case, it did not need the additional filter cap added from the wiper to the shell. Other than that, this is all stuff that you've seen dozens of times on the channel for good reasons. These are the way to do things. You can see the typical things I've done here with all the cathode bypass caps changed out. The entire board has been cleaned with isopropyl alcohol. Here in this problem spot on this circuit, all AB763 circuits, where this eyelet here is so close to the B+ eyelet, I always remove every component from this eyelet, including the old solder, and I just soak this area with isopropyl, then drive it out with extreme heat, and we don't have any leakage from this DC to here where this should just be AC. I mentioned that this chassis had been dented here where this input jack is. All the jacks are fine, they're working fine, all the solder joints are good, the resistors are good, but as is very common, some corrosion had built up here between the metal on the tip and the metal on the normal, which is tied to ground. And so when nothing was plugged in, you had a So just cleaning out that connection between them and getting rid of all that corrosion made them operate the way they're supposed to. You can see this new roach up here on legs, not very well installed. That's because this is temporary. This roach is actually going to go into a 1965 twin right after this video. And this was ordered for that. I've got to get another roach for this amp. The old one here, I could see the bulb flashing, but no matter how hard the bulb was flashing, no change was happening. The LDR is kaput. There's a bulb here and a light dependent resistor here. And as the bulb flashes, the resistance is supposed to go to 0, and that just wasn't happening. So whole circuit working, no tremolo effect. This is the fix. So another one would be like this. This is how they come from the vendor. I always cut the excess off and get rid of that silver dot, shrink the heat shrinking some more so it looks a bit more like the old stuff, but it's purely cosmetic. But, you know, it matters to me, at least. It's really a shame that that grid broke off for V7 here, because it was an old pair of GE 6L6s, but it did not survive it. It draws almost no current. It is mostly sincerely dead. But I've got a test pair of Mesa branded Sovtex in now, just to make sure the amp is working. It is. I'll get some, probably some Tungsol 6L6 GC STRs, which are a good choice for this amp. And the AT7 for the reverb driver, this old Telefunken, sorry, I need new glasses. This old Telefunken was really noisy. So it's got a Chinese one in there for now, and talking to the owner after he sees this video, I want to get a Joint Army Navy 70s Philips AT7 in there. It's a great choice for about $30. Other than that, all the tubes that are in here are a mixture of old RCA 7025s and some other Telefunkens, and everything's working great. So let me turn down the level on this mic and let you hear the amp. Well, very cool. The solvents that I put on that switch seem to have done the trick. I don't have to open that switch up. Fingers crossed for the next one. It worked! So it's all sounding really good. I expect it'll sound the same or better once it gets its new go home with set of 6L6s and 12A T7 and its very own custom trim to size roach. So very promising. Oh, one thing you can, I'll show you in this video. I need to clean that switch again. It shouldn't pop when I unplug it. So that's just a matter of needing a little bit more cleaning on that jack, not that switch, that jack. The way to test for ticking on the tremolo on these things: turn the volume off, turn the reverb off, have the tremolo intensity at 0 and the tremolo engaged, and let it go for about 15 minutes and see if you hear it ticking. This one does not tick. But if it did, the solution is to take a 10 or 22 nanofarad, which is the same thing as 0.01 or 0.022 cap, 630 volts or higher, and put it from here to here. And that will de-tick most Fender tremolos. And some Fenders in the late 70s, you'll see a cap added from here to here. Ground is a low impedance node, so is B+. This also works, but you have more chance of something going wrong when you're dealing with this high voltage at both ends. I find that from here to ground is the better option. Your mileage may vary, but probably not. Probably not. Anyway, this will probably help someone out there. Even if not, I appreciate you watching. So, thank you. Thanks for watching.